The rise of Islam Makhachev, from promising talent to UFC contender. It was the year 2016. The world of mixed martial arts was buzzing. The UFC was in full swing, and one of the sport's most exciting young prospects was making his mark. This wasn't just any prospect. It was Islam Makhachev, the silent assassin from Dagestan, who was quietly making waves as a force to be reckoned with in the lightweight division. Trained by the legendary Khabib Nurmagomedov, the same man who shaped the UFC's greatest undefeated champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam was being groomed for greatness. Islam's journey in the UFC wasn't just about stepping into the octagon. It was about proving that he had the same ferocity and skill as his mentor, Khabib. But the UFC wasn't going to just hand him his success on a silver platter. Every fight, every opponent, and every challenge was going to test his resolve. It was in 2016, when Islam was still building his reputation, that he first met Chris Wade, an American wrestler and submission artist, inside the UFC's famed cage. But for Islam, the arena wasn't just a cage. It was a place to showcase his relentless work ethic, his sambo mastery, and his refined striking skills, slowly but surely developing under the guidance of his camp. Chris Wade vs. Islam Makhachev, UFC Fight Night, Louis vs. Abdurakhimov, 2016. Chris Wade, though skilled, had his limitations. He was a grinder, a man who thrived on wrestling exchanges and wore his opponents down, bit by bit. He knew that Islam's grappling was elite, but Chris believed that he could edge out Islam by simply controlling the tempo and pace of the fight. He had his own ambitions, his own vision for the future, and he saw this as his opportunity to break into the rankings. But Islam Makhachev had a different plan. From the moment the bell rang, it was clear that Islam's striking had improved leaps and bounds. He wasn't just a wrestler like the rest of the Dagestani fighters. He was a complete fighter, blending strikes, footwork, and transitions seamlessly into his grappling. Every time Chris Wade tried to press the action, Islam was there, moving with fluidity, countering Wade's attempts with well-timed jabs, leg kicks, and elusive movements. Islam didn't allow Chris to dominate or dictate the pace. Instead, he kept Wade on the back foot, making him respect every second in the octagon. Every time Chris tried to close the distance for a takedown, Islam was there to either deny it or reverse the positions with his superior grappling. By the end of the fight, Islam earned a unanimous decision victory, displaying his vast improvements in both striking and grappling. For Islam, this wasn't just another win. It was proof to the world that he was ready for bigger challenges. Nick Lentz vs. Islam Makhachev, UFC Fight Night, Weirdum vs. Volkov, 2017. Fast forward to 2017. Islam's UFC journey continued with another fight, this time against the ever-dangerous Nick Lentz, a veteran of the sport. Lentz, with his gritty style and powerful wrestling, was known to be a tough out for anyone in the lightweight division. Islam had already proven his worth against Chris Wade, but Nick was no walk in the park. He had his own set of ambitions and a chip on his shoulder. Nick Lentz wasn't just a fighter who would go down easily. This fight had a different energy to it. As the bell rang, both fighters had a clear goal: impose their game and dictate the tempo. Nick Lentz, a wrestler with aggressive ground control and submission potential, was ready to take the fight to the floor. He knew Islam's stand-up was still a work in progress, and he wanted to make it a grappling affair. But what Lentz didn't expect was Islam's transformation into a well-rounded fighter who had the same kind of grappling dominance that Lentz was known for. The fight itself became a test of wills. Lentz, trying to control Islam with his wrestling, found himself repeatedly frustrated. Every time he tried to take Islam down, Islam scrambled and used his legs to either get back to his feet or control the position on the ground. But it wasn't just the wrestling exchanges that made the difference. It was Islam's striking. In the second round, Islam used his hands and kicks to create distance, punishing Lentz with sharp counterstrikes. When the fight went to the ground, Islam was calm and collected, working his way into dominant positions. He didn't just win the exchanges, he dictated them. It wasn't a one-sided affair, but it was clear that Islam was always in control, making it nearly impossible for Lentz to find his rhythm. Islam walked away with another unanimous decision victory, this time showcasing how far his skill set had evolved. He didn't just win by grinding out victories on the ground, he was now a multifaceted threat. He was evolving into a fighter who could beat you at your own game. Controversies before and after the fights. Before the Chris Wade fight, many critics doubted whether Islam could handle someone like Wade, who was known for his wrestling and toughness. Some said he was simply riding Khabib's coattails, while others argued that Islam's training wasn't as polished. There was a sense of skepticism surrounding him, despite his impressive amateur record. Islam's quiet demeanor didn't help. In a sport where trash-talking and flashy personas often dominate, Islam's stoic approach to the sport made him something of an enigma. However, after his win over Chris Wade, Islam's quiet confidence began to speak for itself. Critics started paying attention. Still, some questioned whether his victories were flukes or if he had truly earned his spot among the lightweight elites. The build-up to the Nick Lentz fight wasn't without its own drama. Lentz was outspoken, trash-talking Islam before the fight and saying he would dominate the young Dagestani fighter. He claimed Islam wouldn't be able to handle the pace of the fight and that he would out-wrestle him. Some fans were even siding with Lentz, believing that Islam's rise had been exaggerated. But Islam wasn't fazed by the pre-fight antics. He simply let his skills do the talking. After the fight, the narrative changed. Islam's victory over Lentz silenced the critics and solidified his place as a rising star in the lightweight division. Fans and analysts began to recognize his complete skill set, and talk about a potential future title shot began to surface. But the controversies didn't stop. Islam continued to be compared to Khabib, with some arguing that he was living in his mentor's shadow. Others claimed that he hadn't faced the same level of competition that Khabib had. However, Islam's approach remained the same: focused, determined, and grounded. He wasn't in the UFC to chase fame. He was there to prove that his skills were world-class. The legacy begins. As time went on, Islam Makhachev's victories over Chris Wade and Nick Lentz became foundational moments in his career. They were stepping stones to greater challenges, bigger fights, and ultimately the UFC lightweight title. What these two fights proved wasn't just Islam's technical prowess, it was his mental toughness. Despite the doubters and naysayers, Islam's journey was just beginning. And as the story of Islam's career continued to unfold, it became clear he wasn't just the student of Khabib Nurmagomedov. He was Islam Makhachev, a fighter in his own right, a champion in the making, and one of the UFC's best-kept secrets. And that, my friends, is the beginning of the saga of Islam Makhachev, a man who didn't let controversy, hype, or doubters sway him from his destiny.